Hello and welcome. Thank you for being here and investing your time in improving your English and yourself. Have you ever looked at your grades and wondered why, even though you tried so hard, you still cannot truly become better at studying, while some people seem to study very little but always stay at the top of the class? That feeling is not just about losing. It feels like you are running in a loop where the more you try to escape, the more you get pulled back to the starting line, and you start doubting yourself without knowing where the real reason comes from. The most frustrating thing is not that you do not study, but that you do study, and yet the results do not reflect what you put in, which slowly makes you get used to trying but not being effective. And over time, you begin to believe that maybe you are not the type of person who is good at studying, that being an excellent student is only for a certain kind of people who are born different. But the truth is not about natural ability. It is about how a person changes the way they live every day until studying is no longer a separate action but becomes part of who they are. And the most important thing that very few people realize is that you do not need to study more right away. You only need to start changing how you are as a learner, starting from the smallest habits you repeat every single day. There is a truth that almost everyone experiences but rarely admits, which is that they only study under pressure and stop immediately when the pressure disappears. You may study very hard right before exams, but then return to your normal life, where studying only exists as a temporary reaction rather than a stable habit. And this creates a repeating feeling of disappointment, because every time you try again, you feel like you are starting almost from zero. Good students are not better because they have stronger motivation, but because they do not let studying depend on motivation in the first place. They turn studying into a natural part of the day, like eating or sleeping, without needing to wait until they feel like studying to begin. And when that happens, they no longer have to fight with themselves every day, because sitting down to study is no longer a difficult decision, but simply an established habit. This small difference creates a huge gap over time because stable learners move forward little by little, while emotional learners move forward and backward repeatedly without noticing. What stops many people from focusing is not a lack of willpower, but the fact that their environment is designed to constantly pull their attention away. Just having your phone next to the study desk already forces your brain to constantly choose between focusing and checking if something new has happened. And every time you lose focus, even for a few seconds, you do not only lose time, but also lose the thinking flow that was forming before that. Good students are not people who are never distracted, but people who understand that distraction must be controlled before it becomes a reflex. They create clear boundaries between study time and entertainment time, to the point where once they sit down to study, they no longer need to make decisions. When you reduce the factors that pull your mind away, you start to realize that you can understand faster, remember longer, and feel less tired than before. And the important thing is not how much time you have, but whether you are fully present during that time or not. There is a very common mistake many students make, which is thinking that reading many times is enough to remember. But in reality, memory does not work that way. You can look at a page for hours, but if you don't truly understand how it connects with other knowledge, it will disappear very quickly afterward. Good learners do not study to memorize, but to understand and reuse, and this difference completely changes how they approach knowledge. Instead of trying to cram, they ask questions. They re-explain things in their own words, and they constantly check whether they truly understand or just recognize the text. When you start studying this way, learning feels slower at first, but the knowledge stays longer and becomes easier to connect with other parts. And gradually, you no longer feel like you have to relearn everything each time you review, because everything has been built into a system in your mind instead of separate pieces. Many people believe they cannot become better because they don't have enough time, but if you look closely, the problem is not the amount of time they have, but how they use each small moment. Some people only study a few hours a day but still improve clearly because they know exactly what they need to do in that time and do not let it drift aimlessly. On the other hand, some people sit for a very long time in front of books, but their mind keeps getting interrupted, making the result almost zero even though they spend a lot of time. Good learners do not try to study more in a blind way. They simply study deeper in each moment they are present. They understand that 1 hour of real focus is worth much more than many hours of half-focused studying. And when you start seeing time in this way, you realize you are never actually lacking time, but only lacking clarity in how to use it. There is a stage where almost everyone gives up, which is when they haven't seen results yet but already feel tired. But students who become top performers are not people who never get tired, but people who understand that results always come later than effort. They don't expect immediate change, but accept that improvement happens silently every day, even when there are no clear signs. And this emotionless consistency is what creates the biggest difference over time. When you continue studying even when you don't feel interested, you are building a version of yourself that is no longer controlled by temporary emotions. And at some point, you will look back and realize that you have gone much further than you ever thought possible. Becoming a top student is not a sudden moment of change, but the result of hundreds of small changes that you barely notice in daily life. It's not about becoming someone completely different, but about starting to live differently, where studying is no longer pressure, but a natural part of life. And when those changes accumulate long enough, you will realize that you are no longer the person who once felt powerless in studying. The most important thing is not where you are today, but who you are becoming in the days you keep going without giving up, even when no one sees your progress. If you find this video interesting and helpful, please give me a like and subscribe.